But overwhelmingly, I'm still in a pickle as to the meaning. I continue to say, and I want to keep pushing on because we still have tomorrow to finish reading this. I continue to say that I am of the mindset that because the Israelites didn't do what they were supposed to do, that this did not come to fruition. Hey, and welcome to Bible 365. I am your host, Kathy Carter. I'm reading through the Bible in 1 year, 365 days. I am using the chronological Bible reading plan, which means I'm reading historically from front to back every day. And I am using the 1 year Bible online.com reading plan. So you would go online to 1yearbibleonline.com, look for their chronological Bible reading plans, and download a free printable, or as I always say, you could buy one of their Bibles. I have no affiliation with them. I just think it's an amazing chronological order because there are a few different, because we don't know factually where some of these places land historically. So I like the one that I'm in. I find it to be the best. It breaks a lot of things up in a different and a way that really makes sense, I think, chronologically with the Bible. Anyway, all that being said, today is day 249. It is September 5th, and we are still in Ezekiel 44 through 46. If you were with me yesterday and the day before, then this is going to follow along the lines of what I've been talking about for the past couple of days, which is that I don't really know the purpose of this vision. We're still in this same vision. So let me just give my 2-minute history really quickly before we go into our reading today. 2-minute history is this. We are in the late 500s, 575-ish, give or take. We are with Ezekiel, who is a prophet of the Lord. The Lord shows him visions directly. Ezekiel lives in the nation of Babylon. He is an Israelite that lives in the nation of Babylon. He was taken by King Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king of Babylon, with many other exiles out of Israel, and they were taken into the nation of Babylon. And there is where they're living. I want to say as slaves. I don't know if every single one of them is slaves, but what I do know is they were a nation that was taken over. And it doesn't seem like they're prospering really well over in Babylon. They are not in the nation where they belong. And so this is a chosen people by the Lord. And what happened was they turned their hearts, their minds, their souls, their behaviors, their life, every single thing away from the Lord their God, who was living and dwelling in the nation with them inside the tabernacle. So they had relationship with the Lord, the maker of the universe, and yet they didn't follow all of his decrees, all of his commands, and their hearts were separated from him. They were constantly turning towards other gods. It came to the point where the Lord said, in order to bring them back to me, I need to allow the rest of the world around them to punish them, so they will cry out to me, so I will turn to them, save them, and then they will know who I am. And there's been vision after vision after vision after prophecy that says they are going to be taken into this nation. They're going to be kind of like scattered all throughout. So Babylon was one of the areas, but they got scattered in different areas, some in Egypt, some maybe a little remnant was left in Jerusalem. And but then they're going to come back to me, and then this new kingdom is going to be established. That's where we are today. We are in a vision of Ezekiel, where Ezekiel is prophesying through the Lord showing him this vision, this new temple that's going to come. And so what we've seen so far is this temple is similar to the temple that they've already had, right? So there's some similarities. Obviously, its size, it's bigger, but we were given these dimensions. So it said it's going to be this height by this height and this width of this wall and this many rooms in it. And these are where the people are going to live. So it has been highly descriptive, right? It's not like a vision where he says, and then eventually you're going to come and there's going to be a new temple, right? Like that hasn't been this vision. This vision is describing all of these little tiny details, where they're going to live, how much land is going to be allotted to them. And I'm bringing this up because it is a vision, which means God is showing him, right, the future. It's not something that was happening at the moment. God was showing it to him. He doesn't really start out by saying why he's showing it to him. He doesn't say, hey, I'm going to show you this kingdom because this is what's going to happen when, right? Like, he doesn't say that. He just says that the Lord kind of picked him up. So if we go back to 40, it just, where it says in the 25th year of our exile, right, in a vision, the God took me to the land of Israel and set me on a high mountain. So that's, and then he starts discussing the city and this man in bronze who starts taking him around. So it's tough because it's kind of broken into different sections. And he shows them all these areas. So today, where we find ourselves, and I'm going to go over it because there are things that I'm finding amazing, and there are things where I'm still confused. So here we are in Ezekiel 44, starting in 1. It says, the man brought me back to the outer gate of the sanctuary. So he's describing all of these things, all of these areas. And then he'll, like, imagine you're looking at, we have the ability to now look at a house we want to purchase. So say you want to purchase this house and you live in New York and you want to purchase a house in Florida, and you have the ability now to look at that house, right? There are not just images, but videos, right, of looking at this house. And you can look at the house from the outside and you can see all of, oh, wow, the house looks like this. It's this color and it has this much of a garage and driveway, and that's what the neighborhood looks like. And then you can kind of like scoot into this tiny little area and you can get a sort of a big blow up of what the master bedroom looks like. And then you kind of draw yourself out and then you scoop in this way and you get a big visual of what a bedroom looks like, and you scoot out and then you look at what the kitchen looks like, right? So it shows all of these things. That's what I feel like God is doing with Ezekiel. Just notice my dog just chilling. It's the life. That's what I believe that God is doing with Ezekiel. He's blowing up, showing him, coming back out again. Blowing up, showing him a different area, coming back out again. Blowing up. These are all things that I think Ezekiel maybe would have been semi-familiar with because he was an Israelite. And so at one time, they did worship at the temple. But he's giving him a bigger, deeper picture. I know I just keep going on and on and on because it's just one of these things. Okay, so the man brought me to the outer gate. So this man, this bronze sort of looking man, is showing him all around. The man brings me to the outer gate of the sanctuary. It was shut. And the Lord says to me, this gate is to remain shut. It must not be open, this gate. No one may enter through it. It's to remain shut because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered through it. So this gate is going to remain shut because the Lord has gone through it. Right? And then we follow up in verse 3 and it says, the prince himself is the only one who may sit inside the gateway to eat in the presence of the Lord. He's to enter by the way of the portico of the gateway and go out the same way. So he goes in this way and he goes out this way. So the Lord has entered this area, and so now it's shut, but the prince can come in and we'll eat. It says we'll eat with the Lord. Now, is it going to be like Solomon's temple where it was there was the altar that only Aaron's sons were able to go in, right? So they were able to go and be with the Lord. Now, were they literally with the Lord? They were in his presence in that room, but the Lord wasn't necessarily down there with him. Is that the same here? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure, but it could be, or it could be literal. Like the Lord might now be at whatever this time is, eating with this prince. Then it says, then the man brought me by way of the north gate to the front of the temple. I looked and I saw the glory of the Lord filling the temple. So the Lord is coming down and he's filling the temple much again like he did, right? He came down in fire. He came down in smoke. And so he filled the temple. And he said, son of man, look carefully. I tell you concerning all the regulations and instructions regarding the temple of the Lord. Give attention to the entrance. So it says to the temple and all the exits. Say to the rebellious Israel, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Enough of your detestable practices. So now we're kind of going back to the people, like he's shown them this place. And then he's like, listen, stop doing all the stuff that you've been doing. It's enough. I'm done with that. Enough of your practices. In addition, all of your other practices, you brought foreigners in here. He says, no foreigner uncircumcised in heart and flesh is to enter my sanctuary. So nobody's allowed to come into this new sanctuary that is not circumcised of the heart and flesh. The Levites who went far from me when Israel went astray and who wandered after their idols, they've got to bear the consequences of their sin. It says in verse 12, but because they served other gods, right? They served other gods. They're not to come near to serve me as priests or come near any of my holy things. I'm going to appoint them to guard the temple for all the work that has to be done. So there are a certain amount of Levites that turn to them. They're going to be punished. So when all this happens, they're not going to serve in the manner in which they were supposed to originally serve because they've done detestable things, but they're going to serve as guards. So it's not like they're going to be completely out. They're just going to serve in a different capacity. And then it says in 15, but the Levitical priests, who are descendants of Zadok, which is a descendant of Aaron, and who guarded my sanctuary when the Israelites went astray from me, are to come near to me. They alone are to enter my sanctuary. When they come in, they're supposed to wear these special garments. So as they come, so here we go back to that when we started talking about this in Exodus and in Leviticus and in Deuteronomy. There's supposed to be a cleanliness to it, right? So they're supposed to come in and they're supposed to wear these special linen clothes. So remember, they had the ephod and the linen tunic, right? All of those things. This is not the same, different, but the same idea. Clean clothes. When they leave the sanctuary, they are supposed to get rid of these clothes. This is so fascinating, this verse, right? It says, so that the people aren't consecrated through contact with their garments. So their garments are so holy that they can't wear them outside of the sanctuary because people might be consecrated because of it, just because of their special, particular, clean garments. So once again, there's this cleanliness inside the temple and this unholiness that we talked about before, right? Those walls, everything that was holy was inside, and everything that was unholy or uncommon or unclean, whatever it is you want to call it, are outside of there. They can't shave their heads. They got to wear it like shortly trimmed. They can't drink wine when they enter the court. They can't marry widows or divorced women, but only virgins or widows that were married to priests before. So they have to keep themselves holy. In any dispute, the priests are to serve as judges. So there's still disputes. Wherever we are, there are still disputes, and these guys are going to be served as judges. They can't defile themselves by going near a dead person. This is all things that we've talked about, right? Like unclean, except if there's a family and then they have to clean themselves. It says, I am to be the only inheritance that the priests have. So they aren't supposed to have any land. They're holy. They're separate. They're set apart. The only thing that's above them is the Lord. That's who they have. The priests can't eat anything dead, right? So whether it's something that tore it apart before. Going down into 45, it says, when you allot the land as an inheritance, you're supposed to give, it says a portion of land is a sacred district, and that's going to be the sanctuary of the most holy place. It's going to be the sacred portion of the land for the priests. So now we have a separate section, this area where priests are going to live, and that's going to be separate and holy. That's going to be set apart from anything else. Verse 6, you are to give this city as its property an area 5,000 cubits wide, 25,000 long, and that's going to belong to all of Israel. So this separate area that's just Israel. It's like he's just building, it's like he's building a whole entire new kingdom. He's basing it on what he has already had in Solomon's temple, right? The temple that the Israelites were supposed to be worshiping and doing all these stuff. And he's just, it looks like he's building a bigger and better one. And I think I've said that before over the past couple of days. Bigger and better one. It doesn't look completely different from Solomon's temple. So I keep coming back to, does that mean that this was supposed to happen already? That when Israel came back, this was what was supposed to happen, right? Is it literal? And if it is, it has not happened. But I have some problems if it's literal, because some of these things don't seem to jive with the idea of Jesus. But if it's figurative, then what does that mean, right? Then where are we left if it's figurative? He says, my princes are no longer going to oppress my people. So I have to admit, when he's been talking about princes in the past, I thought it was this redeemer, right? So he's been talking about this redeemer that's going to come, it's going to bring the people back, and it's going to turn their hearts and bring them back to the Lord. And so I keep thinking about this redeemer, and that might be the prince. But here it says princes, so it's more than one, right? So there's going to be, it seems like there's going to continue this consecutive line, quite possibly in the line of David, that are going to be the princes. And guess what? They're no longer allowed to oppress the people. They're not allowed, they will allow the people of Israel to possess the land. And he says, you've gone far enough, princes. Stop your violence. Stop your oppression. So again, he's still calling out to them to stop being violent. These are the princes of Israel, not the princes of any other area. Then he talks about all the celebrations they're supposed to have. He's going back to talking about celebrating the Passover in this area. Verse 16, all the people of the land will be required to give a special offering. And it's going to be duty of the prince to require to give these offerings so the people can offer and have this big joyous celebration. That's going to be the requirement of the prince. He says, you're to do the same on the 7th day of the month for anyone who sins unintentionally or through ignorance. So there's still sinning happening here. And it says you're supposed to atone for these sins that are happening. In verse 21, you're supposed to observe the Passover. Moving down to chapter 46, it says, the gate of the inner court facing east is to be shut on the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath day and the day of the new moon is to be open. The prince is to enter from outside. So the prince is to come in a certain way, again, and go out a certain way, and that's only on the Sabbath. The priests are to sacrifice the burnt offering and his fellowship offerings. And then it says, the burnt offering the prince brings to the Lord on the Sabbath is to be 6 male lambs and a ram without defect. All of the stuff that we've seen before. When the prince enters, he's to go in through the portico of the gateway and to come out the same way. And we're going to see that it says all these other people too. The people of the land need to come in a certain way and go out a certain way. No one's to return through the gate by which they entered, right? So they come in and then they got to keep going. So there's something, I'm sure, there's something that represents going in and not going back out the way you came. I haven't really torn that apart or what that means, but there seems to be meaning behind it. So the prince goes in and out the way he came, but the others go in and out the opposite way in which they came. Verse 12, when the prince provides a free will offering to the Lord, whether a burnt offering or a fellowship offering, the gate facing east is to be opened for him. And then he says, and then he's going to go out that way. And then in verse 15, it says, so the lamb and the grain offering and the oil shall be provided morning by morning for a regular burnt offering. Again, every day there's going to be these offerings that are happening. If a prince makes a gift from his inheritance to one of his sons, so again, we're going back all the way back, some of the things that they forgot, no longer practiced. It says, if the prince makes an offering, so the prince kind of pulls from his stuff, makes an offering, gives it to his sons, the sons have it for a time until it reverts back. So it says they may keep it until the year of freedom, which was the year of Jubilee way back when. And then it's going to revert to the prince. His inheritance belongs to his sons only, right? So they can give it out, but it belongs to his sons only. He's to give his sons their inheritance out of his own property. And then moving down into the end of 46, it says, then the man brought me through the entrance at the side of the gate to the sacred rooms facing north, which belonged to the priests. And then he saw all these other rooms. It's like he saw this kitchen off of here. So it's sort of like, and it says these kitchens where those who minister at the temple are to cook the sacrifices for the people. So that's our whole reading for today. And there were some details that I found really interesting, but overwhelmingly I'm still in a pickle as to the meaning. I continue to say, and I want to keep pushing on because we still have tomorrow to finish reading this. I continue to say that I am of the mindset that because the Israelites didn't do what they were supposed to do, that this did not come to fruition. Maybe it is just a representation of certain other things. But this ceremonial sacrificial system with the Levites as the priests and there being a prince in charge, right? This throws me in a conundrum of just really trying to understand what I need to do with this. And so I'm probably going to say the same stuff tomorrow. But there are some unique and interesting things in here that we can certainly go over and we can, certainly obviously bring forward and bring to light and to talk about, because some things are definitely different than the original, but so many things are similar. And so that's where we're left today. And again, I always say, I love to hear your comments. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this, where your thoughts are, right? Where your thoughts lie with this. I keep thinking and I keep feeling it laid really heavy on me that we have much greater responsibility in the way that we follow the Lord than we're doing right now. That we are in some ways falling short of loving the Lord in the way and worshiping the Lord in the way he's supposed to be loved and worshiped. And I think that that we have the ability to do so, especially now, right? The Lord has laid the Holy Spirit upon us. And so we have this ability. I was even talking this morning to a friend of mine at the gym where I work, and she was discussing that. Like, she said, I'm not really ashamed of the gospel, but I kind of need to be careful. And I need, and that's true for me as well. I'm certainly not at all ashamed. Obviously I'm doing this. This is open, and people know my name. And, but there still is some maybe hold back in the way that I present my faith, in the way in which I openly share my faith, in the way in which, so I do a lot of things, and maybe that needs to be tweaked in some ways, right? Like maybe I need to sit with the Lord and be in more prayer about how wholeheartedly living my faith would look like, right? Like what would that mean to be in full worship of the Lord all the time, where I have a heart of flesh and not of stone, right? So this is just things I've been thinking about, and being in prayer about. So I pray that this has been encouraging to you. I hope this has been a blessing to you. And if it has, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be reading more of Ezekiel's temple tomorrow, the temple that Ezekiel is seeing in his vision. So come back with me. Although you might hear a lot of the same stuff, but I still want you to come back and sort of get an idea of what that vision looks like. And until then, keep reading. I will see you guys next time.